Lesson 14. Here, there, a shock, and the truth. Okay, being able to actually ask where is something is all well and good, but it actually is pretty pointless if all you hear back when you ask that is cost of coffee. Okay, so what I found when I first arrived here is that you watch someone's body language when they do that and when they go like that or like that, and with a handful of words of vocabulary, a little bit of vocabulary, I could then repeat back to them what I understood to be what they were driving at. So they would say their bit with the body language and I would say, okay, so there, left, straight on. And they would either nod or they would shake their head, and that's how you can start to get by. So it's just about watch the body language, use the vocabulary we're going to learn in this lesson, and then repeat it back. Okay, let's start that vocabulary. So the word for here in Polish is tu.
Tu. Tu.
Very sharp and to the point, so it should be easy to remember. Then we have another word, right here.
Tutaj. Tutaj.
Now, truth be told, I've never got a real straight answer on the difference between tu and tutaj. Some people, say that the tutaj bit is to really express something, to go, it's here, right here. But you generally find these are interchangeable, and you kind of get comfortable with which one to use in which situation. Obviously, if you just remember tu, then you'll get by just fine, but watch out for that tutaj, which will appear from time to time. Okay, there.
Tam. Tam.
Again, another really short one, nothing difficult to pronounce there, but we just have to learn it. And a very common phrase is this here and there. We might ask, is there a good restaurant? And someone might say, oh, here and there. So let's hear that.
Tu I tam. Tu I tam.
And as you can see, I've just squeezed in there the Polish word for and, which is simply the letter I, but obviously pronounced I, like in ski. So there's your your word for and, which is actually just a single letter. Okay, left.
Lewo. Lewo.
And that's fairly similar to the English one. It even starts off sounding the same, but then has an O at the end. Right.
Prawo. Prawo.
Now, right is an interesting one because it has a far wider usage than just for directions. Exactly the same as it does in English. In English we have this, you have rights, it's your right, things like that. In Polish we don't say you are right, say you are correct. That's something slightly different which we'll look at later. The actual literal for that is something like you have reasoning or you have good reasoning. So you can't use this prawo to say you are right, but you can use it to express the concept of having rights. And I studied at high school the Russian Revolution, and so and this prawo word, it really I remembered something from it. And I remembered that in Russia, before the revolution, and obviously after it, they had a newspaper. The Communist Party had a newspaper before and after the 1917 revolution. I think the newspaper started in 1912, called Pravda. And there were a few copies made in English. There's a copy on the screen now. This one, interestingly, right down there at the bottom, this is from the 1980s, and at the bottom there they've got a story about after Chernobyl, right back in page 20. I hope that had a positive spin on it. But there you go. So you've got this newspaper called Pravda, which means truth. Truth, obviously. The Communist Party always told the truth in Russia. Now, if we think about it, the Polish language doesn't have a word for V. We've come across this many, many times. We don't have V, we use W. And so the Polish word from for truth comes from here. Prawda.
Prawda. Prawda.
And from that we get the very useful phrase, it's the truth. And we sometimes hear this in English, but more like, well, sometimes it's the truth, but sometimes it's the God's honest truth. Really, it's the truth. So you probably know how to say it's the truth.
To prawda. To prawda.
All right, let's look at some other directions. So go further, or like carry on.
Dalej. Dalej.
This one also has a very wide use in the Polish language because we can use it when we say carry on. It's exactly the same as we do in Britain. Someone's telling in English. Someone's telling you a story, and then they stop because they get distracted, and you say carry on, tell me more. It's exactly the same in Polish. We'll use this dalej, carry on, tell me more, tell me more. Or if we've been working and physical work and we stop for a break, have a cup of tea, and then someone will stand up, have a stretch and say, dalej, let's carry on, let's go further. So that's a really useful word to have, far beyond just instructions. Okay, straight on.
Prosto. Prosto.
Now, I can always remember this one. We can remember it a couple of ways. The first is it's a bit close to pronto, that pronto in English, which means, quick, 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 quick. Do it pronto. And if we think quick, the quickest way to go is straight on. So that's one kind of mental hook. The other one is the Polish phrase for what they literally translated, a straight shock. A straight shock. Let's just hear that.
Po prostu szok. Po prostu szok.
And as you'll see there, shock has had the Polish workover. So we came across this sh sound in przepraszam. Excuse my pronunciation, but that really is a tricky word for me still. But that excuse me, we found that sh sound, and here's that sh sound again to bring across shock into Polish. Or perhaps it was shock was brought across into English, I don't know. But they sound exactly the same. A shock is a shock. Right, and this prosto, we see there that it's a U on the end instead of an O. And we'll come to the reason behind that. Again, we've seen that some words change at the end depending on circumstances, and we'll see some more of that later in the course. But just remembering it as this, po obviously doesn't mean a, because we don't have a word for a. It's just kind of like a holding word in there. But you'll find that somebody will go, I looked at it and then I saw the price and po prostu shock. It was a straight shock.
Po prostu szok. Po prostu szok.
So this is our basic vocabulary for repeating directions back to somebody so that we can see if we've actually understood what they said, more from their body language than actually understanding the actual words they've used, because we're a bit early on in the language to know anything more complex. Tu I tam, you might come across that quite regularly. Some businesses use it, cleaning company, tu I tam, window cleaners, tu I tam plumbers. So you'll see that in business names in quite common use. And of course they're great short words, very easy to say, no tricky pronunciation. Then we've got left and right, but also this thing about right being your right. And in a later lesson we'll actually say it's my right. We'll learn how to say it's my right or it's your right. And we've also discovered the word for truth through a little bit of Russian history. So we've got it's the truth. Remember, obviously we lost the jest a long time ago when we were doing positive statements. So just to pravda. And that great one, a straight shock. A straight shock. Okay, these are your key words for getting around, and they were all I ever needed for a long time.